This conference will now be recorded.
All right, good morning, everybody. It is Saturday, June 5th, 2021. This is Greg Morton, and I'm doing this video to try something new. So I want to try to have one pre-meeting video to cover Canslim overview, administrative matters, moving average lines on my charts, chart dot system, recommended resources, and a general Canslim overview. So this was suggested at our last meeting by one of the attendees, and I thought, hey, that's a good idea. I'm going to try that. So you would need to watch this before a regular monthly meeting. Once you watch it, you probably don't need to watch it again unless you want to go back and review it. And so instead of a 2.5-hour meeting this coming Tuesday, which is normally 2 hours of me teaching and 30 minutes of Q&A and chart review, maybe we can shorten the monthly meetings down to about 1.5 hours of teaching on Canslim and then 30 minutes of Q&A, chart analysis, that sort of thing. It will also save each of you time, as we won't do the intro materials at the beginning of each monthly meeting. So let's see how this works. So the agenda for this video, I'm going to do an introduction to Canslim. I'm going to cover recommended resources, books, sites, things that I think are helpful to you, and all the IBD resources will be in there. I'm going to cover some Canslimisms, which are some general principles that I just think are helpful overview principles to keep in mind. And then I'll go over the administrative information for the meetings, terms I use, moving average lines on the charts, that sort of thing. As always, like all the presentations, these are for educational purposes only, not recommending any stocks or securities to buy or sell, and all investing has substantial risk of big losses. So we want to learn first and only then invest. So Canslim, let's look at this. So this was developed by Bill O'Neill in the late 50s to the early 60s. Approximately 3+ years of research and study went into this. Canslim is a growth stock investing system. It is not a value stock investing system. You need to know the difference between the two. The value stock investors are Warren Buffett, Benjamin Graham, those sort of folks. Growth stock investors are Nicholas Darvas, Bill O'Neill, Jesse Livermore, Gerald Loeb, Bernard Baruch, going all the way back to the Jesse Livermore days. So in the Canslim system, buying is a combination of fundamentals. Those are weighted 2/3. Those are the statistics, sort of the back of the baseball card, if you will, performance statistics, and technicals, which is the chart. That's weighted 1/3. Fundamentals are weighted 2/3 in our analysis. Technicals, chart action is rated 1/3, and then market direction is the other 100% under the Canslim system. So selling is 100% technical chart action. You want to shoot, sell first, ask questions later. Canslim is the O'Neill acronym for the 7 elements that the great model, leading, winning stocks had in common. So O'Neill researched stocks back to the late 1800s, did the chart analysis, and said, hey, what do the great ones have in common? And that's the Canslim system. It also is a very chart-dependent system. The technicals and the market direction, price and volume are very important in the system, so you have to develop chart reading skills in order to do Canslim. You just can't do it without it. It also is a complete investing system. I really can't stress that enough. It's a system of buy and sell rules. The goal is to buy right as well as sell right. And in buying, I kind of summarize it this way. We want the right stock. So that's a Canslim growth stock. We want it at the right time, breaking out of a full and proper early stage base on the chart. That's the technicals. The right stock is sort of the fundamental analysis. And then it needs to be in the right market. So we want the right stock, right time, right market. That's the M factor. If you don't have it all right, then it's going to be wrong. It's not going to work. So if you're new to Canslim, welcome to the jungle. Sometimes it's a little bit like this. So I'm sort of going to break it down, give you an overview of sort of 3 stages in the Canslim journey. When you're new to this, here's what we're trying to do. We want to identify a Canslim stock in an early stage IBD base, that's a first or second stage base, during a market uptrend, that's the M factor. We want the stock to have a valid prior uptrend. We abbreviate that PUT of 30% or more. And then we want to buy it right by scaling into a full initial position size without chasing past the 5% buy zone. And then we want to sell it at the 20 to 25% profit goal. And we just want to repeat that over and over with consistency and discipline while keeping all losses small. So it sort of looks like this. I think this is a Lee Tanner slide. So here's your prior uptrend on the left. Here's a full and proper base. That's a cup with handle. Here is the breakout, 10 cents over the pivot, which is the right side high. We'll see it go up 20 to 25%, and then we want to sell it at the profit goal. And it kind of occurs in this time frame, hopefully, but that's not necessarily cast in stone. And then as we go further in the Canslim investing journey, so once you can do the stage 1 strategy consistently, so instead of selling it all at the 20 to 25% profit goal, you want to sell maybe half at the 20% profit goal and try to hold the remainder for a short-term profit extension. And you can adjust your stop on the balance held. Mark Minervini refers to this as backstopping the trade. So you want to pick a sell rule at that point based on what you see on the chart. If it's a chart that's obeying the 10-day moving average line, use the 10-day. Maybe sell on a violation of that. You got to define violation. I covered this in the meetings where we covered sell rules in great detail and worked through charts on those. And we're expecting to be out soon. And then stage 3, sort of the final stage, want to learn to identify the model stock or the true market leader, as they're called. Per O'Neill, this is only 1 or 2 out of every Canslim stocks you buy, at most. And this identity process happens mostly after you buy. You really don't know going in which one's going to be the true market leader. So in 2020, in one of our meetings, I walked through true market leaders. We looked at Dexcom. I showed how to research it as a potential true market leader. It didn't work. It had the characteristics. It looked like it was going to do that. It just didn't pan out. And then in the series I did on sell rules in January, February, and March of this year, 2021, I covered true market leaders again in great detail, how to identify them, how to search them, in the third part of that 3-part series. So a couple keynotes. It is an educational process to learn and apply the Canslim system. It takes a lot of time and effort. This is an advanced college class. We're not in kindergarten. In fact, David Ryan has said it took him 2 years to learn the Canslim system, and he was working directly under Bill O'Neill at the time. So it's not a simple process. It is self-taught. You have to write your Canslim buy and sell rules based on the system and Bill's, what he gives us in the books and on the website. You have to apply your rules. You have to make your own mistakes. You have to learn from your mistakes, and then you go modify your rules. That's how it works. Doesn't have anything to do with CNBC, doesn't have anything to do with Twitter. So buy-in is lonely. It should be in a vacuum. It's your decision alone. You cannot learn when you are making other people's, i.e. stock tips, mistakes. I remember Kramer, and I don't watch financial news. I saw a clip of it later that somebody had posted. So when the Lyft IPO came out, he was sort of live calling it on CNBC the day it was trading, and it was coming down and coming down. And he was saying, you absolutely have to buy these things. You need to sell your other tech stocks to buy it. And it just kept on going down after that. So just ignore all that junk. So you also have to ask, hey, does Canslim even work? How well does it work? Fair question. So O'Neill, after he developed the system from 61 to 62 under 2 years, he ran a 10,000 margin account up to $200,000. He became the youngest person at that time to buy a seat on the New York Stock Exchange. You can look at Amy Smith's book, Success Stories. I'll show you a picture of her book later. There's people that teach this thoroughly, Lee Tanner, Steve Sweats, who do this for a living. And reasonable annual profit goal, it needs to be tied to the indexes. So twice what the NASDAQ or S&P 500 does for the year, whichever of those two is higher, or 20%. So that's sort of a way to do it, and it ties it to how the indexes did that year. I think that's really important. And this rule came from Steve Sweats and makes a lot of sense. And then finally, we have an independent study. I think of the American Association of Individual Investors, sort of like the Consumer Reports of the investing space. So here's what they did. They did a study of, it was really over 50 investment strategies from January 1st, 1998 to December 31st, 2009. So over 10 years. And so they tested all those systems over that 10-year period, and Canslim finished first. So, you might want to start with number 10 and work your way up. I really don't want to do that. Let's start with number 1. So where do you start? What are the tools? All right, so here's Bill's books. The green and orange are both the most recent edition. They're basically the same page per page, except the green one has a little test in the back. No need to pay $30 for it, just buy the orange one. If you're new to this, or if you're helping somebody who's new, you start with the blue book, Matt Galgani's book, because Bill's book starts with 100 charts in the front, which if you don't know anything about charts, that's a little bit hard. So get Matt's book and Amy Smith's book that I mentioned earlier. And Amy's, while this is on true life success stories, she also teaches the system throughout the book. So start with those two, buy those two together, and then go to the orange book. Don't forget about O'Neill's 2 other books. These are both good. The Successful Investor is the one he wrote after the 2000 to 2003 prolonged bear market. And this was sort of like, what about Canslim did you not get? Why did you not keep your losses small? So don't ignore those books, although the orange one is the one you'll go back and read year after year, probably along. It helps to look at 24 essential lessons in the Successful Investor down the road also. Then you have the website, Investors Business Daily or investors.com. So you subscribe to the newspaper, you kind of get the website free, is the way it works. So you have all the tools there as they move to primarily online content plus a weekend newspaper. The newspaper's under the news tab. If you just click on that and click on EIBD, you can download the whole newspaper, which looks just like a newspaper in a PDF file each weekend. And you can get it in the mail too. If you really like a hard copy, you just add that as a subscription option, and it's about $20 extra a year to get the hard copy in the mail. So here's the newspaper. This is the PDF version, which looks exactly like the copy in the mail if you get one also. So this is this weekend's. Then they have Leaderboard. So this is a step above investors.com. They sell this as hold your hand investing. So this is one of their few products, along with Swing Trader, which I'm not going to talk about because I don't do that or use it. But Leaderboard is sort of a hold your hand investing system, and it's run by humans. So it's not computers making decisions. It is what they call the markets team making the buy and sell decisions on Leaderboard. So you can see all the tabs. The sector leaders are in here. The IBD 50 are in here with the top 10 charts marked up. Stock Spotlight is in there. They have these leaders list, leaders near a buy point. It gives you a little blurb on each one. What's the buy range, where it is currently. Articles are linked. You can pull up the chart. You can add it to your list. You can pull up more articles. They tell you where it is. So you can go through and see everything that they have hand selected to be on Leaderboard. And then here is an example. So AMAT is a leading stock right now. So they're telling you it's still in a buy zone, giving you the analysis. You can click on this top left and get a little summary of the market action. They're telling you market's in confirmed uptrend. So they just switched. They just went back to that yesterday, actually. So that's very current. Here's what the charts look like. You get daily, weekly, monthly, and intraday. These are hand marked up by them. showing you the buy points, showing you the basis. It pulls stock checkup into the charts. The only place it really does this, I think, is on leaderboard. So here's a daily chart. They'll tell you the entries, why they entered. So like I said, it's kind of hold your hand investing. Here's the weekly chart. They'll show you their entries, what time they added it as a position, that sort of thing. So a good tool, and it's sort of the step between, if you don't want to go straight to MarketSmith, you can, try leaderboard first. It's not as expensive and it's more helpful when you're earlier in the journey. MarketSmith, of course, is the premier product. Here's the home page. There's a lot of stuff you can access on here, even if you're not a subscriber. So don't ignore this page. Gives you a summary of each day's action. Banner here at the top. There's webinars in here you can access without being a subscriber. Here's, of course, the charts. This is a daily chart. So has pattern recognition. It shows you the chart patterns. You can customize these columns at the bottom. It shows you how many of the top mutual funds own it over here on the right. It has a journal. You can set alerts to trigger. It's these little triangles over here show alerts that have been triggered. They start out black and then they turn to MarketSmith orange or gold if you want when they trigger. You can mark up the charts when there were daily stock analysis articles, New America articles, whatever you want to put on there. So there's a lot of details. Here's the weekly chart. So it pulls in, here's your big fundamental screen that you want to pay attention to. So it pulls everything in together in one place on the MarketSmith chart. It's a tremendous time saver and a tremendously powerful tool. So bottom line on MarketSmith, I call it the Swiss Army knife tool for Canslim investors. In fact, I said that when Amy Smith interviewed me for the MarketSmith stock guide. I think it was back in 2018. I said that and they put that in there. And so I still sort of think of it that way. They should use that in their marketing and pay me for that. But you don't need to get MarketSmith until you really maximize the other resources. I mean, if you're just starting out in Canslim, it's not cheap, and you really just don't need it. Just do investors.com and the newspaper, read the books, study them, and then get it when you've gotten more serious and you're putting in the work. So other resources, they have these home study courses. I used to highly recommend these, particularly the IPO one is great. The problem is, starting at the end of 2020, they said, we're not going to give you DVDs anymore. It's online access only. It only lasts for 3 years, and we're no longer giving you the big chart books that came with these. These had tremendous oversized chart books with them that were really, really good. So I can't recommend this till they fix that. They either have to get the chart books back. I mean, the IPO ones, they go on sale once a year, but the regular price is $1,000 and you don't get a chart book with it anymore. I just don't get that. So not real pleased. I've complained about that. They need to fix it. At a minimum, they've got to give you the books in PDF or something where you can go have them printed up yourself. So I have a real gripe with them about that, but I'm not making any progress. So they have IBD Live, a newer product rolled out into 2019, covers first hour and a half of trading in the markets, walking through charts, discussing stocks. They're recorded. They're available for several weeks. I don't know how many weeks now. This was a recent one. They have some guest hosts. Yeah, I have this on the slide. They're really ramping this up. This is really becoming nice. David Ryan's going to start coming on every week. Again, former O'Neill portfolio manager, 3-time U.S. investing champion. He doesn't speak a lot. He hadn't written any books, and so it's great to have access to him. You can submit questions during the show. I don't know where else you get that kind of access. Charles Harris, longtime O'Neill portfolio manager. He'll be on about once a month. He buys more on weakness and pullbacks. Arusha has left IBD as it's being sold. He's staying with the O'Neill portfolio company. So he's a portfolio manager. So he's doing the same thing as Charles Harris. So he's on regularly. Joe Fahmy will be on there. Kathy Donnelly was recently on. She's one of the authors of The Life Cycle Trade. Eve Bobick, she's a co-author of The Life Cycle Trade and a She works for Jim Ropel. She's a portfolio manager at his hedge fund. This is just some top quality people they're having on there, as well as their regular team, which have been at IBD forever. Those guys work there forever and have a lot of experience in the system, and are you get a lot of bang for the buck. I think you can do a free week 2 trial. I mean a 2-week free trial. I said that wrong. Then you also have the weekly podcast. Oh, they used to be with Arusha. I used an old slide. Since he's left IBD, they're now hosted by Justin and Alyssa each week. Here's some of the guests that they've had. Jim Ropel's been on. Oh my goodness, you have to go listen to those. Scott O'Neill's a great teacher. David Ryan, I probably don't have all the dates. Mark Minervini, oh, he shows up on IBD Live too as a host. Tom O'Halloran, who runs the Lord Abbott Funds, was on there this date. Eve's been on, Kathy's been on. Mike Webster, Charles Harris, Justin, Scott St. Clair. Sorry, I've got his name wrong there. They've been on. So those are great to go back and listen to. Those are all on investors.com. And then books, other books than what I showed you. So Anil actually wrote a book on shorting. Even if you're not going to short, this is a great book to get because you can see, you can study what the true market leaders look like when they top, when they roll over. So great study book, if nothing else. And then Gil Morales, this is probably the best book on shorting, the most detailed. Darvis's How I Made $2 Million in the Stock Market is a classic. Reminiscences by Jesse Livermore, or about Jesse Livermore, is great. The Perfect Speculator, not a lot of people recommend this one, but I really like it. Steve Sweats really likes it, and some other Canslim traders really like it. So I highly recommend it. This is the Taser story, The Perfect Stock, and it's the same author that wrote The Perfect Speculator. That one's just interesting. I'd read The Perfect Speculator. A little psychology book, Why You Win or Lose. Best book out there on IPOs, as well as handling really true market leaders, I think. The Life Cycle Trade, Kathy and Eve were co-authors along with Kurt and Eric, I think are the 4 authors. If you want to learn about candlesticks, here's a good book on that. This is a guy that kind of brought the whole Japanese candlestick charting to the United States in the first place. And then websites. So this is the Greenville Eastside IBD Meetup site, which I run. This is the official one I run with IBD. I've uploaded a ton of resources on here for you. If you will go to the More tab and then go to message boards, and you get these top 2 pinned posts. I've uploaded a ton of resources. If you'll open those, here's the first one, Group Teaching Portfolios linked in there. I upload the coloring book each weekend. Down here, if you're new to Canslim, I've linked some great videos. There's just a ton of stuff in those top 2 pinned posts. So join the Greenville Eastside site and you'll have access to all those. Another resource that you have to do yourself, this is my personal one. Bill wrote the America's Greatest Opportunity series, which was 70 charts and articles. I've done a file that's on the Greenville Eastside site, as well as the top of my Twitter feed is linked. I gave you a Google spreadsheet. It has this file in there. You can take them to Kinko's and have them printed. I did an index for you by year, company name, alphabetically, same order as the pages in the book. So you can use that, and you need to go through and mark these up and study them. Richard Moglin has interviewed a lot of Canslim growth style traders, so it's great to follow him on Twitter and his YouTube channel. Trade Objectives is www.tradeobjectives.com. Under resources, Carl writes a great weekly market summary, goes through a lot of charts, no opinions, just analysis, trend lines, that sort of thing. So I highly recommend his report. I look at it each weekend. On the MarketSmith site, there are webinars that you have access to, even if you're not a member. This 5-part series is probably one of the best ones I've ever seen. This is close to what they did at the old level 4 classes, and you can watch that for free. So good stuff in there. Amy Smith on IPOs, Scott O'Neill teaches in there. Scott St. Clair has a great presentation on relative strength in there, and the relative strength line coming out of bear markets. So just good stuff. So watch those. There's 2 old IBD desk diaries. Hard to find these. You have to find them at used bookstores or something. There's one for 2004, 2005. So it's like a daily calendar. It has charts, Canslim notes, that sort of thing. So if you can find them, that's good. All right, that's sort of the summary of the resources I think you need to be aware of, and that'll keep you busy for a while. And then you have meetup groups that do online meetings. I mean, I didn't even cover those like I do at the Stockyard. So let's just walk through some 30,000 foot flyover Canslim isms and things I think are important to remember. It's number 1, successful investors judge a trade as good or bad by what happens before they click buy or sell. So a profitable trade can actually be a bad trade. That's one of the worst things that can happen to you when you're starting out, is to have a very profitable trade that just did not follow any rules and you just lucked up. And an unprofitable trade where you followed the rules, kept your losses small, did exactly like what you were supposed to do, can be a good trade. So you've got to realize that. So the key question is not how much did I make? The key question is, did I follow my written rules? If no, then it was a mistake. If you don't have any written rules, it's all a mistake. And I don't remember who said that. I didn't make that up, but that's a great saying. It might have been Alexander Elder, I'm not sure. And then later, when you do your post-analysis over the weekend, question is, do my written rules require a modification, a tweak, or a footnote? And that's not something that happens every weekend, but it's something to study and pay attention to. And then I've also observed that the best traders to learn from are the ones who spend as much time or even more time talking about their mistakes rather than their successes. So other general principles, you've got to have written rules. That's the defense against our biggest hurdle to becoming a successful investor, which is ourselves, and including our emotions of fear and greed. So FOMO is the fear of missing out. Folia is the fear of losing it all. And fear is a more intense emotion than greed. So if we don't have rules, we're going to tend to sell too early. The stocks get hit, FOLIA, and then we're going to hold on too long as they go up instead of selling them when our written sell rules are being triggered. And the fact fear is a more intense emotion than greed is also why stocks go up the staircase and they come down the express elevator, or they just plain fall off the cliff. So rules are necessary because Canslim is a complete investing system. I mentioned that earlier. Every trader, whether it's Canslim or not, you've got to have an investing system, rules that work. So it might not be Canslim, but it's my observation that most people who get into trading just have no system at all. They don't even know they need a system. So they're just going to go buy what they think is a good company. And so that is not going to work long term. So some critical foundational bricks, Canslim works better when the NASDAQ is trending above the 15-day moving average line. Canslim works best when the NASDAQ is trending above the 21-day exponential moving average line and the power trend is even owned in the market school model. And then Mike Webster once said, and I kind of never forgotten this, never buy or own a stock under a declining 50-day moving average line. It's just a nice little rule that can keep you out of a lot of trouble. Other general principles, no requirement that Canslim investors play when the weather conditions are bad. So, don't get in the boat when there's a hurricane warning on the news. This is one of the major advantages that we have. Mutual funds have to be 95% invested at all times. We don't have that rule. The other advantage we have is we're one-click traders, easy in, easy out. We're not moving the markets. We're not the victim of liquidity issues. we don't have any problems getting out if we're investing in proper Canslim stocks. Other general principles, there's a time that every stock should be sold, i.e. buy and hold forever does not work. The Canslim system will outperform that. There's also a precise time, precise point on the chart where Canslim stocks should be bought. That's your lowest risk entry. It's not a no risk entry, but it's the lowest risk. And it's also important to remember that really great Canslim traders strike out over 50% of the time. I think Mark Minervini says his batting average is about 450. So he's striking out 55% of the time. But the system accounts for the fact that we bat less than 500. So other general principles to remember. So the best merchandise comes out in the first 6 to 10 weeks right after a follow through day, following a true bear market or a serious correction. As we get further and further away from the follow through day, there's going to be fewer and fewer Canslim stocks setting up the further we are down the road. And the further we are down from the road, your portfolio management, your efforts shift more to managing existing positions and looking for add-on buy points, more so than putting new merchandise in your portfolio. Still want to have a weekend routine, still want to do your watch list. Other general principles: do not ask for nor take investment advice or stock tips. Your work needs to be yours alone. Your mistakes need to be your mistakes, because you can't correct someone else's mistake that you incorporate into your trading. Couple examples of this: when David Ryan was a 3-time U.S. investing champion, you can imagine people were always asking him for stock tips. He generally would refuse to give people stock tips. And on the 1 or 2 occasions where he did do that, he would give them 2 tickers, tell them to go study it, and don't ever tell them which one they bought, because he didn't want to know. He's not going to be going with them and monitoring the trade. And then my small group, everybody needs a small group of trading partners, mentors. We never say to each other, hey, should I buy this stock? No, it's like, hey, I'm looking at this. Here's my chart analysis. Here's the flaws. What do you see when you look at the chart? That kind of comment's fine to get some assistance in chart reading, but not, hey, should I buy this or should I sell this? It just never comes up. So turn off the financial news, but you can go to Netflix and watch the Dirty Money series. That's a pretty good documentary series, including the Valiant Pharmaceutical, which was a great Canslim growth stock until it wasn't, because it was fraudulent, but it was all over in the newspaper and everything. So that's an interesting one to watch. So don't predict, only interpret. O'Neill teaches that. Price and volume and the M factor are what guides you. This one's important. Quit asking why. Why did that stock go down? The earnings were great. No, focus on what happened. Hey, the stock went down. That's not good. Or my sell rule's getting triggered. And what do your rules tell you to do when you see X happen? So just take why out of your vocabulary, because a lot of times you're not going to be able to figure out the why, or it's going to be months before you do figure it out. And that's why we sell on technical chart action, not why did that stock go down? But no, that stock broke the 50-day on the highest volume in a year, and the largest wide range bar in a year. So that's a sell signal. You want to be flexible. Bill always talked about bending like a tree in the wind. Keep great records. Show me a trader who keeps good records and I'll show you a great trader. I've given you all the group teaching portfolio on the Meetup site, which is a spreadsheet I spent about 2 years developing. So you can download that, you can make a copy, you can use it. And there's a video on there too explaining how to use it. Mark up your charts for post-analysis. And then the group teaching portfolio is designed to highlight flaws, position sizing, position quantity, not tracking EPS dates, all those sort of things. So in the market, the daily close is more important than the daily open. The weekly close is the most important of all. And Bill worked mostly off of weekly charts, almost exclusively off of weekly charts, except for entries. Use daily charts for entries. If you're trading before market open, which is higher risk, it does seem like there's a little pullback sometimes in the last minute or two. And then during the day, sometimes seems like the weakest price of the day is around 1:45 or 2 p.m. sometimes. I don't know if that has to do with lunchtime in New York or what that is. So, also so you know, so Anil's portfolio managers have to trade off an approved list. They couldn't go buy any stock. They could lobby to have a stock added to the approved list, and Bill would focus on two things. Remember, it already had to be a Canslim stock, or you didn't go in Bill's office and start talking about it. But he would ask two things. One, what is new? So the N in Canslim, and who owns it already? What funds own it? What fund managers have kicked the tires and bought it? The I in Canslim. So if those were important to him, I think it should be important to us. So everything starts with your weekend routine and your watch list preparation. Your work is almost exclusively done outside of the market being open. The watch list is a process of exclusion, not inclusion. I did a whole, basically a 2-hour meeting on weekend routine and building a watch list. So stocks need to earn their way onto the watch list. This is not every stock gets a trophy. I think anybody can do a watch list of 15 or 20 top stocks. You need to be able to do a watch list, narrowing it down to the top 2 or 3, if there are 2 or 3 that are worthy that weekend. So you really become laser focused when you can do a watch list of just 2 or 3 of the very tip top stocks. And I had read recently, Bill was always focused on only 2 or 3 stocks at a time. So that's weekend routine and buy rules. Sell rules are things to remember. Sell rules are really in those 3 recent meetings I did. Canslim traders never average down. Canslim traders never lower stops. They only raise them. Basel Day, I call that Bill O'Neill Sell Your Loser Day. That's the last trading Friday of each month. So there was a period of time where he would look at his portfolio and he didn't want to hold more than one losing position on the last trading Friday of a month. So that's just a portfolio management rule, sort of helps you avoid watering the weeds and pulling the flowers. Other general principles, you want to sell your worst performing stocks first. You go, well, how do I know which one is the worst performing? Well, it's the one that's down the most. How hard is that? Or up the least if they're all up. And then finally, over time, I've learned this, focus on the fish in the boat, not all the fish in the lake you didn't catch. There are stocks that'll rocket up that are not Canslim stocks. Get over it, ignore it. And if it was a Canslim stock, then study it. Was it on your radar? Was it actually on your watch list? Did you miss it? Why did you miss it? So study it. And then whenever I used this slide the first time, I remember the triple Ds was up like 100% in one day. But there's no way you would have owned that stock before that happened if you were doing Canslim right. Same thing with biotechs with no earnings or sales, right? They're just not going to be in a Canslim portfolio. All right, so that's the Canslimisms. Here's the administrative stuff for our meetings that you need to know about. So my goal at every meeting is intermediate to advanced Canslim education and skill development. I spend a lot of time preparing for these meetings, and I hope at the end you walk away thinking, you know what, that was educational and helpful. Time well spent. So here's the definitions. When I refer to Bill, of course, I'm talking about Bill O'Neill, father of Canslim, as well as Scott O'Neill, who runs the company now. The book, How to Make Money in Stocks, is the main one that we looked at earlier. David Ryan, if I talk about him, he was an O'Neill protege, 3-time U.S. investing champion. A Canslim portfolio, concentrated portfolio of equally sized initial positions, normally between 8 and 12. Canslim trading is position trading and growth stocks. It's not swing trading, it is not day trading, it is not trading value stocks. If I talk about an IPO base, I'm using the IBD definition, got type of a true IPO base, which you need a left side high in the first 25 days of trading and a short base thereafter. Normally a minimum of 10 days, can be as low as 5, but that's rare. Position sizing, scaling in. So Actually, the group teaching portfolio is now 60,000 in each position. And so when we're buying a full position, it would be a B1, 50% size at a pivot plus 10 cents, would be 30,000, 30% at pivot plus 2.5%, 20% at pivot plus 5. But I'm really generally using pivot plus 2% and pivot plus 4% for the B2 and the B3. Add-on buys, when our add-on buy rules are triggered, that's the percentage discussed is a percentage of the shares already held before the add-on buy. And then the moving average lines on my charts in MarketSmith are the 10-day, 21-day, 50, and 200. They're all simple moving averages except the 21-day is exponential, and they're pink, green, red, and black on the charts. Buying on strength, we're talking about buying standard breakouts from full and proper bases, or maybe early alternative entries when you develop that skill. Buying on weakness is buying on pullbacks to the 50-day, 10-week lines. This is Charles Harris's trading personality. He buys more on weakness than on strength. Mike Webster buys more on strength rather than weakness. Selling into strength is selling on the upside before the top. Selling on weakness is selling on the downside after the top. And then model stocks is IBD, Bill Lingo for the great ones, true market leaders, not long-term leaders, that's something new, but the true market leaders that we're talking about. And then when you see the dots on my charts, this is what they are. This just helps me in screening. If right above where it reported earnings, if I have 4 green dots, that means it had triple-digit earnings and sales in the last quarter. So that's really strong. I want to study that chart. I want to study that stock to see if it's a true Canslim stock. And then you got 3 green dots, triple-digit earnings growth, and sales are at Canslim, so at least 25%. 2 green dots on earnings at least 40% in the last quarter, sales above Canslim levels. That 40% comes from 2 webinars where Bill and Neil said, let me make this simple for you. If that company doesn't have at least 40% earnings growth in the last reported quarters, it does not currently have the characteristics to be a true market leader. And he really wants it to be higher. And then the other dots that are explained there, yellow dot just reminds me it's a foreign stock. Pink dots are thin. Blue square, 3/4 accelerating earnings and sales growth. That's kind of rare. I want to pay attention to that. Here's a list of the educational topics from our prior meetings. These recordings and slide decks are available. You just email me. I'll give you contact information. I'll send you the ordering information. The most popular ones are in green. This is sort of Canslim trading A to Z, where I walk through those 3 stages in much more detail. August of 2020, this was a weekend routine, how I used the Growth 250 in the paper to build a watch list every weekend. And then January, February, and March of this year, if you don't have written sell rules, you need to get those 3. I walked through it in great detail, and you will have your own set of written sell rules by the time you go through these 3 meetings. And it sort of tracks the 3 stages on the MarketSmith chart. So you can reach out. Couple other administrative matters. So I do have 2 meetup sites. One is the official IBD one. Everybody join that. I showed you how to get to the resources already. And it looks like this. And then the Stockyard one has the photo of my yellow lab on there. I don't take pictures of my dogs. My wife and daughter were messing around one day and people were doing that and had the glasses on the dog. And I thought, at the same time, IBD had something where they'd send you a free book if you had a picture of your pet with Bill's book or something, some Twitter thing. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to do that while they're messing around. So why are there 2? The Eastside one's the official one. I have several reasons that I wanted to have my own and control it, which is the Stockyard. One reason is that in the last 2 years, IBD, without ever contacting the meetup leaders, totally deleted 2 meetup sites because they control them and they pay for it. So it's not recoverable. The leaders couldn't contact the members. IBD thought they weren't meeting enough or something. And so I don't want that to happen. So that's one reason I have a separate site. I also wanted a separate one to handle the online meeting demand. I actually started making my meetings available online about a year before COVID. I would do the live meetings and do it on the internet at the same time. Now we just do it on the internet because it's a lot easier. So that's it. Here's the contact information if you want to reach out about any of those prior webinars or any questions. This should give you everything you need prior to one of our regular monthly meetings that you should be attending. So we'll see how this works. So this coming Tuesday, when we meet, we will jump right into the M Factor without any introductory material. So we'll see how this works. I still think it'll be about a 2-hour meeting. So maybe an hour and a half of education, 30 minutes, maybe a little more for live Q&A, chart review, that sort of thing. So that's it. Hope you have a good weekend this weekend. And then if you're reviewing this in the future before you attend your first meeting, I hope it's helpful for you there. Y'all have a good one.